We got some very, very low attendance numbers. We have some upsets. A new poll has been released, and the 2025 WNBA schedule has been put out there. That and a whole lot more on this week's edition of Women's Basketball Weekly. Cue the intro. What is up, awesome people of the internet? Feast week has come and gone, and if you all have missed the action, let me keep you all updated on generally what was going on, because it was a whole lot of action. Okay, so we had some teams take care of business, like number 14, Kentucky, who took down both Arizona State and number 19, Illinois, at the Music City Classic. And that Illinois game was straight up fire because it's Kentucky's second ranked win of the season. And it just shows people that, like, Kentucky isn't a fluke. They are a really, really good squad. And for the Wildcats, it wasn't just their guards. To be honest with you, the guards didn't really dominate at all. It was their bigs who dominated. It was the post play of the Virginia Tech transfer, Clara Strack, who led the charge for the Wildcats. She ended up finishing the game with 25 points in this one, 15 rebounds for her. And it wasn't just her. You also had Teonni Key, 6'4" Teonni Key, do her thing as well. She finished with a double-double in the starting lineup, finished with 12 points and 10 rebounds. But no. That was not it. You also had off the bench freshman Clara Silva add in 6 points and 6 rebounds. Height was a crazy factor, especially in that Illinois game. And there was nothing Illinois could do because they just didn't have the height. They didn't have the height to really compete with Kentucky. And guys, again, I feel like I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I cannot wait until Kentucky plays during conference play for the SEC. Like, I just can't wait because like that really is going to be when we can really, really see what this team has to offer. Because guys, the Claras and Teonni, fun for the new Virginia Tech, aka Kentucky. All right. Let's continue talking about Kentucky. We also had Georgia Amore, who in the Illinois game, she was abysmal from the field. Like, she was really, really bad shooting wise. She's finished 4 of 17 from the field, finishing with 8 points. The good news is that she did take care of the ball pretty well and dished out 8 assists while she was at it. All right, guys, let's continue on. The Hawaii North Shore Showcase was a pretty odd one. We saw unranked South Dakota State, who I'm actually a big fan of. I like the Jackrabbits. They ended up losing in a surprise, in my opinion, to Georgia Tech, 71-57. In that game, Georgia Tech's junior guard, Toni Morgan, y'all, she was straight up fire in this one, leading the charge for her team, finishing with 21 points. She almost had a double-double with 9 rebounds in that game as well. Now, the Jackrabbits, they didn't just take their loss and sort of wallow in it. No, they came back, and on last Tuesday, they upset number 21 Oregon with a final score of 75-70. Now, in that game, Deja Kelly from Oregon, y'all, she was doing her thing. She played pretty well in this game. However, the rest of her team did not show up, and the Jackrabbits were ready. They had 4 players finishing the game with in double figures, led by Brooklyn Meyer, who had 19 points and 8 rebounds in that game. Y'all, Duke, straight up on a tear right now. Last week, they played in the Ball Dogs Classic, and wowee. What a time they had. Duke, who last week was ranked number 13th in the country, took down both number 9 K-State and number 8 Oklahoma. And I got 2 names for you. 2 names. Ashlon Jackson and Reigan Richardson. Because y'all, they put on a show last week. In the K-State game, it was all about Ashlon, who basically could not miss from the three, ultimately finishing the game with 30 points. And you follow up that performance in the game against Oklahoma, where senior Reigan Richardson went off from the three as well, finishing that game with 35 points. Y'all, Duke is dangerous because they got bona fide scorers. Okay, yes, Duke does have a pretty good defense. Yes, they do. However, it is their scoring that is setting them apart from teams this year. It's the scoring. And it's specifically the 3-point shooting. Now, that's something that Duke didn't really have in years past, in the recent years past. Now they do. And y'all, Kara Lawson's just getting started, okay? Duke is dangerous. And on Thursday, we will see Duke take on South Carolina. Guys, what a game that's going to be. Well, I'm telling y'all, mark your TVs, DVR it, whatever you got to do. Make sure you watch that game because it is about to be straight up fire, okay? And speaking of South Carolina, we did see them got against UCLA last week, and that was kind of wild, I would say. Definitely took a lot of people by surprise. Definitely took me by surprise, but hey, anybody can get got, everybody can get got, and it's gonna be your time eventually, okay? And last week was the time for South Carolina where they ended up getting got, but they followed that up by absolutely demolishing Iowa State after that on Thanksgiving Day. They destroyed Iowa State. Final score of that game was 76-36, so that was kind of crazy. But we continue on. The Baha Mar Women's Championship featured number 2 UConn taking care of business against Ole Miss, the number 18 team in the country last week. Final score of that game was 73-60, and UConn also took down Oregon State 71-52. The Baha Mar Pink Flamingo Championship featured number 7 LSU destroying number 20 NC State. Final score of that game was 82-65. That game was should have been way closer than it was, but y'all, NC State they're not about that life. This year they ain't gonna do nothing. It doesn't look great for them. It just doesn't. It doesn't. Consistency is a huge issue for NC State. In the Gulf Coast Showcase, we ended up seeing Texas beat West Virginia in a nail biter of a game. Final score of that game was 78-73. Now, if I'm the Mountaineers, guys, I gotta have my head held high because they were basically neck and neck the entire game against a top 5 school. Now, the only thing that they really were missing is that 4th consistent score. You need that to really make some noise in the NCAA. Yes, West Virginia is a good squad. They are. But if they want to beat top 5 teams, you need that 4th score. Because JJ Kennerly, straight up baller, okay? She had 29 points in that game. Jordan Harrison also balling. She had 20 points in that game. Sydney Shaw had a couple of threes as well. Finished, I believe, with 10 points. But everybody else on West Virginia was relatively quiet. And just having 3 players to be a threat is not going to cut it against some of the best teams in the country. Now, for the Longhorns, it was a little bit of everybody making some noise for this win. We saw Madison Booker lead the charge with 19 points and 8 rebounds. Aaliyah Moore finished the game with 20 points. Y'all, Aaliyah Moore is one of those players that, she has so much talent. And I saw her in person when Texas played DePaul. And y'all, Aaliyah Moore, if she really wants to, she can't really be stopped. She just can't, okay? In the post. I think she's a very, very strong post player. It's just that sometimes she don't be looking for her shot like that. But if she looks for a shot, she can score, okay? She can absolutely score. She had 20 points in that game. Another good game was had by freshman Justice Carlton, who she came off the bench adding in 10 points and 6 rebounds for her squad. And y'all, if y'all did not know, this past week, Justice Carlton had a game. Okay. She was actually fresh off of a 30-point game against Butler. Okay. 30 points against Butler. That was kind of wild. So shout out to the freshman for putting up some fantastic numbers. She keep doing that. She's gonna get more and more playing time. And finally, Iowa continues their winning streak. They're now 8-0 on the season. Ended up taking down Rhode Island and BYU last week. Now, that's a good gist of the games that happened last week. Now, this is not all the games, but I just wanted to highlight some of the bigger, more profile games. There were other games that were had as well, but you get the gist. Every year during the Thanksgiving break, many college programs around the country play in various tournaments, challenges, classics, various random showcases, both inside and outside of the United States. And at least for the women, these games have primarily been happening in very, very small gyms with very, very small crowds. Now, I'm talking really, really small numbers. I'm talking 135 people in attendance. Yeah, you heard me right. 135 people in attendance to watch the number 11 team in the country face Utah State during the Daytona Beach Classic. What? 135 people. Yeah, that sucks, right? I'm talking 457 people in attendance for the Gulf Coast Showcase Championship game between number 5 Texas and number 12 West Virginia for a championship game. Yeah. And finally, we have 2,122 people in attendance for the Fort Myers Classic tip-off game between number 4 South Carolina and number 15 Iowa State. Now, 2,000, sure, that's a whole lot better than barely over 100 and 400 people in attendance. Like, sure, that's better than those games, but it's still not good. It's still pretty abysmal when you consider the fact that for Iowa State home games, they're getting around 9,000 on average. For South Carolina home games, they're getting around 15,000 on average. Now, these are the women's basketball teams. 9,000 at Hilton Coliseum in Iowa. 15,000 for South Carolina at home. And you compare that to barely over 2,000 fans. The numbers all throughout Feast Week for women's basketball has been abysmal. And this is not new. From the streaming channels that these games are on, and the fact that it's very difficult for some fans to be able to watch all these games because some are on these random streaming platforms that people only hear about once a year during this time. You have that. You have the fact that no one is in attendance, and you're like, well, what's the point of this? Why are we doing this? Why is women's basketball having Feast Week to begin with when no one shows up to the games and it is very, very hard for people to actually watch? What's the point? Who's benefiting from this? Why does this thing even exist? Well, as y'all know, I like to do research. So I did a little bit of research. And it turns out that these tournaments are what's called a MET, which is a multiple team event. And if y'all want to look at the starts of these multiple team events, you can thank Alaska for it. From what I can tell, the Great Alaska Shootout was the first MET ever. It happened in 1978, where teams came to Alaska. Some top teams in the country came to Alaska to face off in a basketball game. And the appeal really was to elevate smaller school programs profile by bringing in national power programs which could take advantage of NCAA rules, allowing them to exceed the maximum allotment of regular season games if they played the 3-game tournament outside of the contiguous 48 states. So basically, yeah, it was Alaska and Hawaii that were able to host games like that because, the NCAA at the time had rules around here are the allotment of regular season games you can play in. You can't play in anymore unless you go out of the 48 states to go somewhere else to play some games. So that's how the METs kind of really started to really be a thing. So the years kind of went on from there. We would see more and more METs initially on the men's side, but also it started to trickle down to the women's side as well. We ended up seeing it move to more warmer climates. We ended up seeing the Maui Invitational start up in 1984. We saw the Cancun Challenge that happened in Mexico. We saw the Cayman Islands Classic and a whole lot more tournaments, classics, and a whole bunch of other stuff, okay? And now we have over a dozen of these things that happen over a week period, with the majority of these games being in warm climates and usually in places that don't have a robust college basketball infrastructure, which does, in a way, make it a little bit harder to get people to actually come out. Now, this is less of a problem on the men's side, though, we do see some abysmal numbers on the men's side as well. You can take, the bad boy mowers battle for Atlanta's game between number 22 Arizona and Oklahoma. Now that men's game only had 456 people in attendance for a top 25 matchup. But for the most part, the men are usually bringing in 2,000 plus in attendance for Feast Week games. Definitely not their normal numbers. Definitely lower than the normal numbers for the men's programs that play during Feast Week. They would have way more attendance at their home games. But it's not as bad as the women, right? So the men are usually at least 2K, likely more than that for the Feast Week games. And it's really the women that struggle way more. With the majority of those Feast Week games averaging less than 1,000 people in attendance. And these feature some of the top teams in the country. So a big part of why people are not attending is because of marketing. Fans won't go if they don't know. It's just a fact. They won't go if they don't know. Also, for the most part, a significant amount of these games are not happening in women's basketball hubs. So therefore, numbers will be low because fandom for women's basketball in those areas can be low, And even with every year, the same thing. Every year, low attendance, year after year after year after year. These tournaments, these classics, these showcases still continue to happen. And that's because they're put on by third-party companies who really know how to put on a MET, okay? These players feel excited to be there, right? They're in warm climates. They get to basically go on a vacation that is paid for by their schools, right? There's, the family members that they have that may be going there as well. They can enjoy a bit of vacation as well. It's like a nice thing, for the players and their families to kind of experience. And, these companies are top notch. And it means that these teams kind of get like equal treatment for the most part, right? It's not like, this one team is so much bigger than the other team. And so, their stuff is way better. No, for the most part, all the teams are treated equal, which from a small school perspective is kind of great. But if I could give a recommendation to the powers that be in women's college basketball, Feast Week is hurting the game of women's basketball. The reason why is because every year for Feast Week, abysmal numbers happen. And it is an opportunity for those who don't care about women's basketball, for those who want to clown women's basketball, to be like, see, no one cares. See, they had 200 people. See, no, like women's basketball sucks and yada, 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 yada. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like people can go on that type of thing, right? And that's not helpful for the growth of the game of women's basketball. It's not. No one's going to show up in terms of attendance. So why not I know you love the companies that run these METs. Like, they're great, right? But what would happen if we had Feast Week at the various hubs for women's basketball? What if we had it at either South Carolina or North Carolina, Connecticut, Louisiana, South Bend, Indiana, Iowa, Tennessee? That's, in my opinion, where Feast Week should be. It should be in those states and those cities. That's where it should be. Because when you want to put on an MET for women's basketball, shouldn't you have it in an area that has proven itself to be a hub, a mecca for women's basketball, right? Tennessee, legendary place for women's basketball. Connecticut, legendary. South Carolina, North Carolina. You got NC State, you got North Carolina, you got Duke, you got South Carolina. Like, you have that, right? You look at South Bend, Indiana, right? Notre Dame, hub, right? You look at Iowa, a newer type of hub. Women's basketball METs should be put in places where they are most likely to succeed. They're not going to succeed in Maui. They're not going to succeed in Cancun. You're going to continue to have barely anybody show up. And it's going to be another excuse for people who want to clown women's basketball to be like, see, that's terrible. And that's not cool. That's not cool. And for those who are saying, you know what, these games were it's just, it is what it is, no one cares about women's basketball, whatnot. It's not true. Because if you look at the home games of these teams, yes, some are not doing as well as others, but they're still having way, way, way more fans in attendance than they are during Feast Week. Way more. And if you're curious, last year, Iowa did play a couple of games during Feast Week. They played in the Gulf Coast Showcase last year, and their numbers still were better, right? We ended up seeing a little bit over 3,000 people attend Iowa versus Purdue Fort Wayne in the Gulf Coast Showcase in one of those games. Another game between Iowa and Florida Gulf Coast last year got 4,200 people in attendance. And another game had 3,000. It was Iowa versus K-State. Now, those games, yeah, sure, definitely more than the games we saw this year. However, those were the worst games for Iowa last year. Last year, when Iowa was selling out places all around the country and blah blah blah, every place they went was crazy. During Feast Week, the numbers weren't that huge. They weren't. The numbers were not that huge because they played in Hertz Arena, which has a capacity of around 7,000 people. So again, that wasn't even packed. So overall, Feast Week, the way it's currently constructed, yes, it gives us upsets. Yes, it is great play. I really do enjoy the play on Feast Week. So the matchups, I'm cool with the matchups staying as is. I just think the venue needs to be different to ensure we can actually give these ladies a real audience. Because there's no way Notre Dame should be playing in what looks like a high school gym for less than 1,000 people. That's ridiculous. It's not cool. That's not cool because the fandom would be there if the games were actually in better women's basketball areas. And also overall, I don't think the marketing support is really there to even where they're at to churn out more people in attendance. I just don't think it is there. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts there. I don't think this is likely to happen, right? I don't think it's likely to happen. My idea of having these Feast Week games in the hubs of women's basketball. It's not going to happen because, the catch is that, one, these teams, they want to go to warm places, right? And most of the hubs of women's basketball during Thanksgiving week, it's cold in those areas. It is cold. And so players may not necessarily want to go there. Two, it's the fact that these games would be held at a particular school. Like they would need to be held at like either Duke or South Carolina or Tennessee or Notre Dame, right? And that would bring a boatload of money to the programs that these games are happening at. But I think it gives less of an incentive for like a LSU to come on up to South Bend to participate in a 6-team tournament where it's Notre Dame, LSU, Iowa State, Morgan State, and pick two other teams, right? Like I don't think it's likely that schools would do that. It is likely that they would do a MET on a neutral site. Like that's the rub, is the neutral site versus going into the lion's den of my competitor's school and having an MET there. Like I think that's the big thing. But if women's basketball ADs can get together, if they can be like, you know what, let's rotate this thing. Let's come to an agreement and let's rotate so that all the schools can eat, right? But you can also have a robust audience, because these ladies be balling, and it should be way more people in attendance. I'm just saying. Now, guys, what do y'all think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do y'all think that women's basketball should change the way they have Feast Week and have it at the various hubs of the sport? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think it's possible to make these various invitationals the way they currently are more successful so that more people actually show up and it's not just like a ghost town? Yeah, let me know your thoughts. I would very much love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Pose, 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 I do adore. Pose, 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 I do adore. All right, guys, y'all know what time it is. It's time to look at the AP Top 25 polls for women's basketball. And guys, we are on week 5. So we got some changes. We got a couple of changes to talk about. So let's get into it. All right, so the number 1 team in the country is still the UCLA Bruins. Nothing has changed. They are still undefeated. No issues on that front. They will play Washington next Sunday, so that should be a very, very fun game. Washington, they can sneak up on them and do something. So just saying. UCLA is still top dogs. Number 2, we got the UConn Huskies. No change on that front. They are still undefeated on the season. Paige Buckets is doing her thing. AZ Fudd is back, and y'all, it is fun to watch the Huskies. They don't have a tough game coming up. They do play Holy Cross coming up tomorrow. But, guys, the game that y'all really want to see is UConn versus Louisville. It's happening on the 7th. It is a game that's going to be on Fox. So y'all should make sure to tune in to watch that game. It should be a very, very fun one. Continuing on, we got the South Carolina Gamecocks, who battled back. Moved up 1 spot. They were at number 4, the 4 spot last week. Moved up to number 3 this week. They're doing their thing. They've been destroying teams since they lost. So, it's nothing like a loss, nothing like a kick in the pants to get you on the right track. And that is exactly what has happened for South Carolina. They do play Duke on a Thursday, and so that's going to be a very good game to watch. Something that should definitely keep on your radar, because maybe there's an upset alert that we need to talk about, because Duke is really, really good. Okay, more about them in a sec. Next up, number 4, we got Texas. The Texas Longhorns moved up 1 spot from last week to number 4 this week. They're continuing to do their thing. They had a really great game against West Virginia last week. And they will be playing Notre Dame on Thursday. So again, another big game that you definitely want to see, because Notre Dame has stuff to prove because they just lost 2 games in a row. Like it was not good. Okay, it was not good. All right, continuing on. We got number 5 LSU, who moved up 2 spots from last week. They're continuing to do their thing. Yeah, just rocking and rolling. At number 5. Number 6, we got USC, who are 6-1 on the season. They're continuing to play some games, making stuff happen. Also, real quick about LSU, they do play Stanford on Thursday. That game is going to be on ESPN2, so should be something to note. Stanford definitely is not as good as they used to be, but also they're no scrubs. Continuing on, we got number 7, Maryland. Y'all, Brenda Freeze is making stuff happen. Making stuff happen at Maryland with their best start since 2018 with a record of 8-0. The Maryland Terrapins are doing their thing on this season. Like I'm really enjoying that. Number 8, we got Duke. Duke has moved up 5 spots from last week, continuing to do their thing. Yeah, Duke got some scores. We all know they had defense, but they got some straight up ballers. Scorers for days. Okay, something fun to watch. They will be playing South Carolina on Thursday, so a definite game for you all to watch. We got the dramatic rise of TCU. The Horned Frogs are making names for themselves this season. They are 8-0 to start the season, have had some big games, including a huge upset of Notre Dame last week. TCU are 8-0. They're in the 9th spot for a reason. Because they are absolutely... TCU is in a nice spot for a reason because they are absolutely making stuff happen. Y'all, the dynamic duo of Sedona Prince and Haley Van Lith, fire. I'm just saying. And then you got Madison Connor every now and then shooting those 3-point shots. Oh, fire. Okay. I'm just saying. TCU. Y'all better watch out for them, man. Y'all better watch out for them. Fun fact is TCU will play South Carolina on December the 8th. So that should be a very fun game. Let's continue on. We got the Fighting Irish, who have went on a bit of a tumble. They lost 2 games in a row, dropped 7 spots into the number 10 spot. Definitely not good. Again, you lost to TCU and you lost to unranked Utah, which was kind of crazy. Notre Dame will have an opportunity to bounce back this week as they play Texas. So I'm really much looking forward to that game, and we'll see what Notre Dame is able to do because they look bad. they look bad. Yeah. Talking about teams that look bad, we got Oklahoma, who dropped 3 spots from last week. They are now at number 11. Was previously at number 8. They dropped because they lost. Oklahoma, I kind of said it earlier, but they ended up losing a game against Duke last week, and y'all, that Duke game was fun. Duke is fire. Oklahoma, they need some more guard support. They need some more guard support to make some stuff happen. You got players, right? You got Reigan Beers, you got Peyton Verhulst, but you need a little bit more. And we'll see if Oklahoma can make some stuff happen Wednesday as they face Louisville. All right, next up we got Ohio State, who did drop 1 spot from last week. And now I don't think it's a situation of anything that Ohio State has done wrong, because they haven't done anything wrong. They haven't lost a game. They've been playing well. I think it's more of what other players are doing right. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing. They do play Illinois on Sunday, so that should be a really fun game. All right, K-State have dropped 4 spots from last week, and the reason why they lost is because, of course, the reason why they dropped, I should say, is because they ended up losing to Duke last week on a fire game. They ended up rebounding and beating both DePaul and Central Arkansas, but still, they lost a game that they kind of had a fighting chance to win. So they ended up getting dropped for that because it makes sense. You lose, you get dropped. All right, number 14, we got Kentucky, who is steady Freddy, right where they were last week. Yeah, it's the rise of the Claras, and Georgia Amore is not scoring, but she is passing the ball well. But scoring-wise, I think she got to get that up a little bit, especially if she wants to get a good draft placement. Number 15, we got West Virginia, who came down 3 spots from last week. They are now in the number 15 spot. We did see them lose to Texas last week, but I don't think that's why they ended up losing. I don't think that's why they ended up dropping. I think it's mainly because other teams have done great stuff. Because Texas is a really good school, so like losing to Texas is not that big of a deal. It's not like you lost to an unranked team. It really, I think, is about what other teams did well, and not necessarily about West Virginia losing. Number 16, we got North Carolina, who are still staying steady at number 16. They are 7-1 on the season so far. We got the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are still in the top 25, actually moved up. Last week was the first week they were in the top 25. They moved up to number 17 because they are still rocking and rolling and have never lost so far. Never lost. Iowa. They make some stuff happen. Shout out to Hannah Stokey, who ended up becoming the tournament MVP for the tournament that they played in for Feast Week. I forgot the name of the tournament, but shout out to Hannah Stokey. Hannah Stokey be doing her thing. She don't get a lot of credit, but she be doing her thing. All right, we will see Iowa take on Tennessee this Saturday, and that should be a very fun game for you all to watch. It's going to be on Fox at 7 p.m. All right, number 18, we got Ole Miss, who are staying steady at 5-2 on the season. They do play NC State, a game that I think Ole Miss is going to dominate. That game against NC State is happening on Thursday. All right, number 16, we got Alabama. Alabama have moved up 4 spots, I should say, from last week. And they are on their best start to the season since 2000. Alabama is making stuff happen. And they're just winning games that should win. Now, has Alabama played a crazy tough opponent just yet? No. But they are taking care of business against teams that they should beat, right? Alabama State, take care of business, win, right? Clemson, take care of business, win. Georgia State, take care of business, win. You just keep doing what you're supposed to do. So that way, when you get into some of these harder games, you're just going to show up because that's what you've been doing. The game that I want to really point out coming up for Alabama is going to be, in January when they play Texas. I think that's going to be the real challenge. I think they should. I mean, they do play Michigan State coming up on the 20th, but I actually think they're going to win that game. I could see Alabama being undefeated until they face Texas in January. But who knows? Michigan State is a good squad, and they could get Alabama. They could. We'll see, though. We'll see. Number 20, we have Iowa State, who dropped down 5 spots from last week. And the reason why is because they lost, and it wasn't that they lost, it was how bad they lost. Iowa State got completely destroyed against South Carolina. Completely destroyed. It was embarrassing how bad it was, where at one point, South Carolina was on 25 point, scoring run, and Iowa State did nothing. It was embarrassing, actually, and I think that's a huge part of why they dropped so as low as they did, right? Yes, other teams are surging, right? But really, it was how Iowa State lost. It's not about the fact that they lost, because of course, nobody was really expecting them to beat South Carolina. It was just how bad they lost. which is what caused the drop, I would say. All right, we got number 21, Illinois, who dropped 2 spots from last week. They lost to Kentucky last week, and they, struggled big time to score in that game. They do have some games coming up where I'm really interested to see how they kind of rebound. They are playing right now, but they do play on the 8th against Ohio State, which should be a very fun game to watch. Number 22, we got Louisville. Louisville has moved up 2 spots from last week. They are 5-2 on the season. But yeah, they do play Oklahoma this week, so I'm interested to see that. They play Oklahoma and they play UConn. So 2 hard challenges for Louisville, and we'll see how they perform. All right, we continue on to see the newcomers. Michigan join the top 25. They are 7-1 on the season. And if y'all remember Michigan from earlier this season, y'all remember the name Silas Swords. She is continuing to do her thing for the Michigan Wolverines. She's averaging around 18 points a game for her squad. And we will see Michigan play some winnable games, but the game I'm looking forward to seeing is Michigan versus Oklahoma on December the 17th. Now that game is gonna be fun. So make sure y'all end up checking that out. The game is gonna be on ESPNW, I believe. So check that out. We have number 24, Michigan State, who is also joining the top 25 for the first time this season. That should be fun. We've seen them stay undefeated, 8-0 for the start of the season. They are rocking and rolling, and we'll see. They do play DePaul this upcoming Sunday, so that is something to take note of. I can't remember if I have tickets. I may have tickets to this game. I have to check my tickets. I buy a bunch of random tickets, and I have to remember which games I bought tickets for, so I can go. But yeah, I may be at this Michigan State DePaul game. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, number 22, we got Nebraska, who are staying steady Freddy. From last week, they were at 25. This week, they're still at 25. They are 6-1 on the season. Now for the others who receive votes, we got NC State, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Tennessee, Oregon, Florida State, Richmond, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Baylor, Utah, Harvard, South Dakota State, Creighton, and Minnesota. Let me know what y'all think about the top 25 list for week 5 of women's college basketball. What do y'all think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, let's continue on. The WNBA schedule has been released for the regular season for 2025, and we will see a record high of 44 games, which means 22 home games and 22 road games for each WNBA squad. Here are some of the key dates for you to know. Free agency for the WNBA begins on January the 21st, so that is when negotiations can start, when teams are able to start talking to players and be like, hey, we would like you on our team. We think you would be a good fit. What do you think? And they start to have this little dance where they talking. And on February 1st, it is when free agents can start signing contracts. So there's a lot of questions about what players are going to be doing, like where players are going for unrestricted free agents, like who's getting cored, all that business. For restricted free agents, will the current teams for those players fight for them to stay on the team, or will they just let them go somewhere else? Like, there's a lot of question marks, and February 1st will allow us to start being able to answer some of those question marks. On April the 14th, we will have the WNBA draft. On May the 16th, opening day starts for the WNBA, and it is going to be very, very, very fun. We will see the Golden State Valkyries, the new team in the W, kick off their season on the 16th as they face the LA Sparks at home at the Chase Center, which should be really, really fun. We will also see the Dallas Wings, the team with the number 1 pick in the 2025 WNBA draft. We will see them take on the Minnesota Lynx. And we will also see the Atlanta Dream take on the Washington Mystics. That is the 3 opening night games. On that Saturday, the May the 17th, we will see the Chicago Sky take on the Indiana Fever in Indiana. Now that game is going to be fire. Smart on the WNBA for, as Kathy Engelbert likes to say, creating games of consequence. You all know that there's a whole bunch of hullabaloo between the fan bases, between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. And you know that if you can get a game between Angel and Caitlin, you know everybody gonna be talking about it. So what would you do? You have that on opening weekend. Smart. I'm just bummed that game is actually happening in Indiana first. I wish it was in Chicago so I could be there for that game. But maybe I'll actually go down to Indiana and go to that game. Maybe. We will also see that Saturday, we'll see the Las Vegas Aces kick off the season against the New York Liberty, the champions, New York Liberty, and that should be pretty fun. And we'll see Seattle take on the Phoenix Mercury as well. So it should be fun. Lots of awesome games. Check out the WNBA schedule on WNBA.com. We will see the Commissioner's Cup take place from June the 1st through June the 17th. On July the 1st, we will see the Commissioner's Cup title game. Again, that's East versus West. Whoever has the best record will face head-to-head for a whole bunch of moolah. On July the 17th through the 21st, we will have the All-Star break with the All-Star game actually happening on the 19th. All-Star weekend is happening in Indiana for 2025. I'm going to be there. Hopefully, Mama going to be there too. My dad probably going to be there too. So it's going to be a whole family affair for All-Star weekend for 2025. So make sure y'all get y'all tickets. Y'all should be there. Be there or be square. On September the 11th, we will have the last day of the regular season, and then playoffs will start shortly after that. So that is the WNBA schedule for 2025. What do y'all think? Are y'all excited for the WNBA season to start? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, lots of teams have had some great rollouts. I've been putting out some videos about some of the teams' rollouts. Who do y'all think has the best rollout? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for rocking with me. Thank you so much for joining for Women's Basketball Weekly for today, December the 2nd. Happy end of the year, guys. We have less than a month to go before we are in 2025. And y'all, man, time moves fast. Time flies by when you are having fun. And I for sure am having fun. What say you? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying life? Are you enjoying what's going on in women's basketball? I hope you are. Now, guys, appreciate y'all. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend that Quita Love Sports is on the internet every single day talking about the awesomeness of women's basketball. And if that's what y'all want to do, hop on, rock out with me. Okay? Okay. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.